When we first started doing this process, this community convening a little over a year ago, the hardest part for me was that no one else had done it. We really did have to do something new and really use kind of a historical community organizing theory and couple it with some new challenges, including the fact that the folks we were trying to organize didn't have technology. We couldn't use email, we couldn't use listservs, we couldn't use the web, we couldn't even use telephone lists. We had to go back to really, on-the-ground community meetings, making both an educational opportunity and a pitch for what we wanted to do at the same time. And it was really challenging, and I'm hoping that all of the work that we put in, and it sounds like it might be, is going to help other cities and other municipalities at least build upon the success we've had here. But it was fun being first, because you get to kind of craft a hybrid of the different models that you've seen before, but it was tough because we really didn't have a blueprint. I want to do one shout out before I introduce Mr. Farstad. There are two people here today that will be leaving shortly, Claire McDonald and Luann Sexton, who facilitated the task force. And I brought them in on very late notice with very little help to facilitate what would be a very challenging 3 or 4 month process to help get to the point where we could actually produce that document. I just want to thank you and have the group thank you for your service and your help on this initiative. I think that's really, it's kind of like rounding up cats. It's a challenge when you bring together 29 people that have never worked together necessarily and don't maybe even know each other very well to really coalesce and come up with something that is a group statement or a group set of recommendations. It was a very challenging process, and I couldn't have done it. I'm just really impressed at the work and learned a lot from you guys in the process, so thank you. I'm going to introduce Jim Farstad now. One of the things that I talked about to some folks from Chicago, and I can't stress it enough, is that you're going to need a little bit of seed money and you're going to need a champion. And for us, the seed money came from the MSNet of the Minneapolis Foundation, and the champions came in the form of Jim Farstad and Bill Beck at the City of Minneapolis. Bill Beck is also here. Mr. Beck, you want to stand up? Bill is the Deputy Technology Officer at the City of Minneapolis, and Jim Farstad is a consultant who has been working for quite a while with the city on telecommunications projects and the wireless broadband IP RFP. I have to really say, if I hadn't had their support from the very beginning, nothing else would have happened. If I didn't feel like we had a partner in City Hall that would help us move this agenda forward and have the ear of elected officials and have the ear of the IT folks and eventually the vendors, chances are I would have given up and basically went back to running my AmeriCorps program. So thank you for your support, and I'm going to have Jim talk a little bit about the history of the effort before the community engagement started, because it's an important part of the history that really very few people know. So Jim, you want to?
Thank you, Catherine. Well, one of the first questions you might ask yourselves is, why on earth did it take us 30 minutes or 30 months? It feels like 30 minutes, but it's really been 30 months to get to this room. When Bill Beck and I first sat down and began to talk about a broadband initiative for the city, we didn't start with the concept of wireless, we started with the concept of broadband. It was something that was being bandied about City Hall a bit. There were a few council members that were interested. We had some other communities in our state and other states that were beginning to explore the possibilities of implementing broadband through either a fiber strategy or a wireless strategy or a hybrid strategy. And we looked at the possibilities for the city of Minneapolis. And one of the first questions that we asked ourselves is, broadband for the purpose of what? There were a lot of things that we were reading, a lot of people we were talking to saying, your city needs to have broadband. You should have broadband. Broadband's very important. Why? Because broadband's the future. Well, what's it going to do for us? Well, it's going to keep you in the forefront of other cities. Broadband's really important. And we weren't really getting a lot of solid ideas about, so what? I mean, we understood conceptually that it was a great idea and that we really wanted to push forward with things like this, but we knew that a project like this would be too complex, too pressured, politically and otherwise, to survive if it wasn't well grounded. So the first question that we really had to answer is broadband for the purpose of what? And we began to look at who are our constituencies. And we drew together with Bill's leadership and his prior experience in many complex initiatives within City Hall, a number of working groups that we could bring to the table and get involved in the process very early. Mind you, this is the fall of 2004. Bill and I started talking about this initiative around March or April of 2004. And by the fall of 2004, we had begun to assemble what we called the working groups. And there were 5 of them. There was a working group focused on public safety, because we felt from the research that we had done that public safety was an important initiative that could benefit from this. And we knew that public safety would probably have some of the greatest concerns. When we started our process, and we went to the police department and we went to the fire department and we said, gosh, this is going to be really exciting, we're going to get broadband everywhere for you, what do you think? And they said, it's a great idea, count us out. So we said, great, okay, well we better get them to the table and maybe we can talk it through over the next little while. Then we formed a group of institutional working groups that represented the non-emergency departments. We were just in the process of working together on a project that would launch, with the support of many people throughout the city, a new 311 system in January of the following year. And the goal behind 311 was to allow a single point of contact to city services for our constituents, whether they were residents or businesses or workers or visitors, in order to find easier ways to work with City Hall. But in addition, the purpose behind 311 was to help us create a culture of greater accountability within City Hall. We wanted to say, you know, it really probably shouldn't take 3 weeks to fix a city street light that goes out. What can we do to begin to track that? How can we follow the leadership and example of others like New York City and Baltimore in developing a system that would give us a much more powerful front end? But as we started talking about the wireless project, the thing that we wanted to focus on is, okay, now that we've got the front door open, what are we going to do about streamlining the field work? What can we do to give more tools to more people in the field? Out of our 5,000 workers at the city, a very large percentage are based in the field. That's where the work gets done, whether they're emergency or non-emergency providers. And we wanted to provide tools to those people so that they could get more work done more quickly without having to come back to a physical location to interact with other information and systems. And then, because of the political structure of Minneapolis and because of the way that the city is physically structured, we have a series of boards. The city doesn't run the parks, it doesn't run the schools, it doesn't run the libraries. It does that through an organization of boards. And they have their own budgets, they've got their own leadership, and certainly they are an element of the city and they work in cooperation with the city. But an initiative like this, they are a choice about how they pursue this type of an initiative, and Bill wanted to make sure that we had the boards at the table. And that we use this kind of a project as a great opportunity to develop stronger working relationships between the city and the different boards. And then we also had an external advisory working group that we focused out of the city convention center. And it drew in some of the entertainment district, the hotel, the airport, the MAC and the university and others to try and give us a sense of, you know, where is business and where is the greater community going to begin to see benefits from this type of a network. And then finally, Bill put together a business, finance, and franchise working group because we knew that this kind of a deal was going to be complex. We had no idea how we were going to fund this. When we went to the mayor and council, we said, you know, well, we're ready to take up this gauntlet and go forward with the idea of broadband. And like the police, they said, we think that's an absolutely terrific idea, don't spend a dime. And so, you know, we moved forward with the idea that we thought we could create a great opportunity for the city and a terrific vision, and all we needed to do was spend no money and not involve public safety. But we knew that the way to really start this was to get these public safety working groups put together. And as we began that conversation and we began to draft up our business case, you know, we looked at streamlining city services as being a very, very important part of the delivery of this network. But we also looked at this concept of digital divide. We didn't have the words digital inclusion at the time. We just knew about the digital divide, and we really needed to do something about that digital divide. But we really didn't have a clue what the digital divide was. I mean, we knew a little bit about how the fact that if you go to some certain areas of Wayzata, there were 1.3 computers per child. If you went to an area around a square mile of lake and 35W, there was one computer per 695 kids. Sure seemed like a divide to us. But we didn't know outside of some of those very high-level facts what it meant. We knew that we had a lot of languages coming into the city. It's not just an English-speaking community anymore. But we really didn't know how many languages. We looked at the signs around City Hall and saw that there were probably 5 or 6 that were pretty commonly spoken besides English, but we had no idea where they were. So we began to do this kind of research. We went to the school district and we said, could you just give us a list of the kids that speak English as a second language, that take English as a second language, and just give us their home addresses, and you know, we'd be set because then we'll be able to make a map. And they said, no, you don't get it. We're not going to do that for you. You can't have that information. You can't beg us. You can't force us. So we knew that this process was going to be something we had to get creative about. So we went back to the school district and we said, okay, how about this? Could you give us the bus stops that are used by children who speak another language and take English as a second language, and could you give us that list? And they thought about it and they said, yeah, we could do bus stops. So we took the bus stops and we took it over to GIS and they made us a map. And we colored the different languages and we said, that's where they are. They speak Somali here, they speak Spanish here and there, they speak Arabic over here. And we began to get a sense of the diversity of our community and a little bit more understanding of what this digital divide was about. But we still didn't have what we really needed. And so a suggestion came to us and said, you know, there's this woman who's been bothering the mayor for about 10 years now. If you call her, maybe she could help. So I called Catherine and said, why have you been bothering the mayor for so long? You should stop doing that. But we got together and she started to help me to understand what the basics were behind the concept of affordable access, of serviceable hardware, of localized content, of digital literacy, to create inclusion, to get away from the concept of all these divides and to create digital inclusion. And so Catherine became a part of the board's working group. And those groups met for the next many months, and the purpose that we put forward was that we wanted to begin the collaborative process of developing the RFP. We needed the business case in an RFP that would help us to guide ourselves in the marketplace, to draw the interest from the vendor community, to give them what they needed in order to be successful and to move this process forward. One of the most dangerous games customers can play, and the city is a customer in this process, is when a customer goes to the marketplace and says, if you guess what it is I want, I'll buy it from you. It's a game that's played an awful lot in the marketplace, and it's very worthless. It's a dangerous game. And we wanted to make sure that the city didn't do that we didn't throw some paper out to the marketplace and say, now, you know, here's all this stuff, you guys figure it out, let us know how it's all going to work, and let's move forward with that from there. We needed to figure out what problems do we need to solve. What do we need to do to streamline city services? What do we need to do to create digital inclusion? What do we need to do to create a better visitor and resident amenity? And what can we do for local businesses in neighborhoods to create microeconomic development? How could we do that? And what could this broadband network serve as a role in that goal? So we developed the RFP through these working groups. We kept going back to the public safety working group, the institutional working group, the boards, the external advisors, our finance and business team, and said, you know, let's talk about what we're learning from other cities. Let's talk about how we can move this forward. And that brought together an RFP in 2005 that was published in May of that year. And it had the concept of digital inclusion. It had the concept of community benefits agreement. You know, it started because of those internal conversations. And we got an awful lot of flack at the time because as we went through this process, we had not taken it out to the community. We didn't do 50 community meetings at this point. We worked through these working teams. But the reason was we didn't want to go to the community till we knew what was real. We didn't want to go to the community till we figured out, could we do this? How is it we were going to fund this? You know, we chose a business model that said, we're not going to own it. We didn't have the budget at City Hall to do that. That wasn't an option available to us. How is it we were going to make a business case out of this? How is it we were going to solve all of these issues? Once we had that understood, and we knew that we had a response that was positive from the market, then we took it out to the community to say, how can we refine this? How do we decide? How do we choose the vendor partners that are going to be best in serving the needs of Minneapolis? And so we've come to today, where we're now in a position where we have a tremendous community benefits agreement, which, by the way, is a starting point, not an ending point. You know, the key with the community benefits agreement, we got a lot of things in there, a tremendous amount. Mostly everything Catherine told me to put in there, we got in there. She would just tell me, go get that. I'd say, yes, ma'am. So I think we got a very good community benefits agreement. It could have been very different. You know, someone asked me this morning, they said, you know, some cities are saying that really the best deal would be 5 megabits for everybody at $20 a month. You know what? Might be a great idea. You could do that. You're probably not going to get the kind of things we got. It's a balance. We decided we didn't want 5 megs at $20. We wanted to create a lot of these different programs. Community benefits agreement was a very key ingredient for us. And so we brought that together, and we're now about to sign it. It's a starting point. What we now need to do, one of the greatest things about this project has been the opportunity to visit every neighborhood in the city. I live in the city, but I visited every neighborhood in the city. I have met more people. I am so impressed with the people that I have met that are working at a tremendous pace to solve these kinds of problems with very little support behind them. We have a tremendous community of people who do not get much credit for all the work that is going on right now. We're giving them some tools in this agreement to take it a step further. But the fact of the matter is, you know, we need as a community, this is not going to be a vendor providing community benefits to the city of Minneapolis. It is a contract that gives us some places to start, but without the community getting fully engaged in recognizing this issue and addressing this issue from the community, you know, we won't be successful. This is not something that's going to happen to Minneapolis. It is something that's going to happen with Minneapolis. Thank you very much.